was sitting on the deck of our overwater bungalow in Bora Bora, my laptop balanced on my knees, watching the royalty family's latest vlog. It was our third day of honeymoon bliss, and I just wanted a few minutes to decompress while Marcus was in the shower. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those incredible tropical colors, and I had this moment of pure contentment. I had been following the royalty family for months, and their vlogs always made me smile. There was something comforting about watching their family dynamic, just wholesome content that made you feel good. Then I heard the door to our bungalow slide open behind me. I turned around, expecting to see Marcus, but instead, Patricia stood there, my mother-in-law, in Bora Bora on our honeymoon. I literally froze, laptop still open, with the vlog playing, trying to process what I was seeing. She was wearing this bright floral dress and had a rolling suitcase beside her, and she was staring at my laptop screen with this expression I couldn't quite read. Before I could even speak, before I could ask what she was doing there or how she even knew where we were staying, she looked from the screen to me with cold eyes and said, "This is why you don't respect me. Too busy with strangers online." I felt like I'd been slapped. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Patricia walked past me into the bungalow, like she owned the place, dragging her suitcase behind her. I heard Marcus turn off the shower, and I just sat there, laptop still playing the vlog, trying to understand what had just happened. How did she get here? Why was she here? And what did watching a YouTube video have to do with anything? Let me back up and explain how we even got to this moment, because trust me, it's a story. Marcus and I had been married for exactly 3 days when we flew to Bora Bora. The wedding had been beautiful, but completely exhausting. Months of planning, family drama, coordinating with vendors, all the stress that comes with trying to make everyone happy. By the time we said our vows, we were both running on fumes. This honeymoon was supposed to be our escape, our chance to finally just exist together without any pressure or expectations. When we first arrived and saw our overwater bungalow, I actually cried. It was more beautiful than any picture I'd seen online. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the clearest blue water I'd ever seen, a private deck with stairs leading right into the ocean, and this dreamy bed with white curtains that moved in the tropical breeze. Marcus carried me over the threshold, and we both just laughed because it felt like something out of a movie. That first day was absolute perfection. We floated in the warm ocean water, watched the sunset from our deck, had an incredible dinner at the resort's beachfront restaurant. Marcus kept reaching across the table to hold my hand, and I remember thinking, I've never been this happy. We talked about our future, made silly plans, reminisced about how we met. Everything felt magical and right. The second day was just as amazing. We woke up early to watch the sunrise, had a couple massage at the spa, went snorkeling, and saw the most incredible coral reefs and sea turtles. That evening, we had champagne and room service on our deck under the stars. I felt like we'd finally left all the wedding stress behind and could just be us, just Sophia and Marcus, starting our life together. Then on the third day, that afternoon, when I was watching the vlog, everything changed. Marcus came out of the bathroom in his robe, saw his mother standing in our living area, and literally stumbled backward. I watched all the color drain from his face. Patricia turned to him with this huge smile and opened her arms for a hug. acting like showing up unannounced on your son's honeymoon was the most normal thing in the world. Marcus kept saying, "Mom, what are you doing here? How did you even know where we were staying?" Patricia just kept smiling, explaining that she'd called the travel agent we used, said it was an emergency, and got all our information. She'd booked a room at the same resort and thought it would be a wonderful surprise to spend some time with us in such a beautiful place. I finally found my voice and said, "Patricia, this is our honeymoon. We wanted this time to be just the two of us." She turned to me with that same cold expression from when she'd seen me watching the vlog and said, "Well, Sophia, maybe if you spent less time watching other people's families online and more time building real relationships, you'd understand that family comes first." The comment hit like a punch to the gut. Marcus immediately jumped in, telling his mom that wasn't fair and that I hadn't done anything wrong. But Patricia just waved him off and started talking about how tired she was from her flight and how she couldn't wait to explore the resort with us tomorrow. She gave Marcus her room number and said she'd see us for breakfast, then left before we could really process what was happening. As soon as the door closed, Marcus and I just stared at each other in complete shock. Neither of us could believe what had just happened. We'd been so careful not to tell anyone exactly where we were staying, specifically because we wanted privacy. But somehow Patricia had tracked us down anyway. That night we barely slept. We kept going over it, trying to figure out how to handle the situation. Marcus felt terrible, caught between wanting to respect our honeymoon and feeling guilty about potentially hurting his mom's feelings. I was just angry. This was supposed to be our special time, and she'd completely violated that. I need to give you some context about Patricia. She's been a widow for 5 years since Marcus's dad passed away from a heart attack. Marcus is her only child, and I understood that she'd become more dependent on him emotionally after losing her husband. During our engagement and wedding planning, there had been moments where she'd made comments about losing her son or how everything was changing. We'd tried to be patient and understanding because grief is complicated, but this felt different. This felt like a deliberate intrusion. The next morning at breakfast, Patricia was already seated at a table when we arrived. She'd apparently told the host we were meeting her, so we got directed to her table automatically. She was wearing another bright outfit and greeted us cheerfully, acting like everything was completely normal. She ordered the most expensive items on the menu and immediately started monopolizing the conversation. She wanted to know all our plans for the day. We'd actually booked a private sailing trip for just the two of us, something we'd reserved months ago. When we mentioned it, Patricia's face fell dramatically. She asked if there was room for one more, and when Marcus gently explained it was booked for 2, she got this hurt expression and said, "I see. Well, I suppose I'll just spend the day alone then." The guilt trip was so obvious, but somehow still effective. Marcus looked miserable. I felt trapped between standing my ground and being seen as the bad daughter-in-law. We ended up promising to have dinner with her that night, just to get through breakfast without more drama. Our sailing trip was beautiful, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. Part of my mind was back at the resort, dreading the evening. Marcus could tell I was distracted and kept apologizing, even though none of this was his fault. We talked about maybe trying to set some boundaries with Patricia, but neither of us knew how to do that without making things worse. Dinner that night was at the resort's finest restaurant, the one that required reservations weeks in advance. Marcus and I had booked it before the wedding, planning for it to be this romantic, special evening. Somehow, Patricia had gotten herself added to our reservation. When we arrived, she was already seated, right in the middle of where Marcus and I would have sat across from each other. Throughout the meal, she told long stories about Marcus as a child, ordered expensive wine, and kept reaching over to fix Marcus's collar or touch his arm like he was still a little boy. When the waiter brought us a complimentary dessert in honor of our honeymoon, Patricia made a comment about how romantic the setting was, almost like she was on a honeymoon herself. After dinner, as we walked through the resort gardens, Patricia linked her arm through Marcus's and announced she'd booked all three of us on a group snorkeling excursion the next day. She'd already paid for it, she said, non-refundable. When Marcus mentioned we'd planned to just have a lazy beach day, she looked devastated and said she'd gone to all this trouble as a surprise. Back in our bungalow that night, Marcus and I had our first real argument as a married couple. I was frustrated that he wasn't being firmer with his mom. He felt caught in the middle and guilty for Patricia being lonely. We both went to bed upset, which felt terrible when we were supposed to be in newlywed bliss. The pattern continued over the next few days. Every plan we made, Patricia wanted to join. Every quiet moment we tried to have, she'd appear. She'd knock on our bungalow door at random times, always needing something or wanting to chat. She made passive-aggressive comments about us not spending enough time with her, even though she was the one who'd crashed our honeymoon uninvited. One afternoon, Marcus and I had secretly planned something special. The resort offered a private island picnic where they'd take you by boat to a tiny secluded island, set up a beautiful lunch, and leave you there alone for a few hours. We'd splurged on it because it seemed like the ultimate romantic experience, and we specifically didn't tell Patricia about it. We snuck out early that morning to meet the boat, feeling ridiculous that we had to hide from Marcus's mother. When we arrived at the little island, it was paradise. White sand, palm trees, crystal water, and a gorgeous lunch spread under a white canopy. For the first time since Patricia arrived, I could actually breathe. Marcus and I floated in the water together, not even talking, just being. We ate slowly, savored every moment of peace. We talked honestly about how we were feeling, and Marcus admitted he was starting to resent his mom's behavior. He'd been making excuses for her, but even he couldn't deny this was crossing major lines. We decided we needed to confront her when we got back, but when the boat returned us to the resort, there was a voicemail from Patricia on Marcus's phone. She sounded upset, saying she wasn't feeling well and needed us immediately. We rushed to her room, worried something was actually wrong, only to find her sitting on her balcony perfectly fine, painting her nails. When we asked about the emergency, she said she'd felt faint earlier but was better now, then immediately complained about being bored all day without us. That's when something in me snapped. I looked at Marcus and saw the same realization in his eyes. This had to stop. Marcus, in a voice I'd never heard him use with his mother, said we needed to talk. Patricia's smile faded instantly. She could tell this was different. Marcus told her directly that showing up on our honeymoon without warning was inappropriate, and that her behavior since arriving had been disrespectful. He said we loved her, but needed her to respect our boundaries. Patricia cycled through emotions quickly: shock, hurt, anger. She started crying, saying she couldn't believe we were being so cruel, that she just wanted time with her son, that she was all alone in the world. When she turned to me and said, "I'm sure this is really coming from you, Sophia," I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I told her calmly that Marcus and I were on the same page, that we were a team, and this wasn't about her relationship with Marcus, but about basic respect for our marriage. She looked genuinely shocked that I'd spoken up. The conversation went in circles for a while, with Patricia playing victim, then getting angry, then crying again. But we stood firm. We told her that for the rest of the trip, she needed to do her own thing and give us space. We'd have one dinner with her before we left, but that was it. She eventually agreed, though I could see the anger underneath. She asked us to leave her room in this cold voice. Walking back to our bungalow, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It was the right thing to do, but it didn't feel good. Marcus was quiet, processing everything, struggling with guilt even though he'd done the right thing. The next 2 days were better. Patricia actually gave us space, though we'd see her around the resort, giving us pointed looks. We went kayaking, had massages, spent hours on the beach, just talking and reading. It wasn't the carefree honeymoon we'd imagined, but we were together and united, and that mattered. One evening, I found myself back on our deck with my laptop, and I pulled up the royalty family again. After everything that had happened, there was something comforting about watching their videos. They had this healthy family dynamic that just felt good to watch. That particular vlog was about handling family challenges, and it actually made me emotional. I wanted that kind of partnership for us, where people respected boundaries and supported each other. Marcus came out and sat beside me, and we ended up watching together. We didn't talk about Patricia or the drama, just enjoyed a quiet moment. It felt like reclaiming something she tried to take from us with that initial comment about strangers online. On our second to last night, we had the planned dinner with Patricia. It was civil but strained. She was polite but distant, clearly still upset, but maintaining appearances. We made small talk, avoided serious topics, and said goodbye with vague plans to see each other back home. As she walked away, Marcus squeezed my hand and said he was proud of how we'd handled everything. Our last full day in Bora Bora ended up being perfect. Gorgeous weather, a beachside cabana all to ourselves, just being together without drama. That evening, we took a long sunset walk on the beach, talking about what we'd learned. Marcus admitted he'd been too enmeshed with his mom and needed to work on maintaining healthier boundaries. We talked about our future and how we wanted to build our life together. We agreed we'd always prioritize each other, be a united front, and not let anyone, even family, come between us. The situation with Patricia had been awful, but it forced important conversations that might have taken years otherwise. On the flight home, I reflected on everything. Part of me was still angry about our disrupted honeymoon. We'd never get that time back. But another part was grateful. We'd faced our first real challenge as a married couple and handled it together. We'd set boundaries and stood up for our relationship, even when it was uncomfortable. The weeks after we got home were interesting. Patricia barely spoke to us at first, giving Marcus the cold shoulder when he'd call. But we stuck to our boundaries. We made it clear We loved her and wanted her in our lives, but on healthier terms. It took time, and honestly, it's still a work in progress, but things slowly started improving. Couples therapy helped a lot. We started going, not because our marriage was in trouble, but to build good habits from the start. Our therapist helped us develop strategies for dealing with family dynamics without feeling guilty. It was one of the best decisions we made. A few months after the honeymoon, Patricia actually apologized. It wasn't perfect, and she still tried to justify some of her actions, but she acknowledged she'd crossed a line. We appreciated the effort, even if it wasn't everything we'd hoped for. We slowly rebuilt our relationship with her, but with clear boundaries in place. Looking back now, I can talk about it with some humor, though it definitely didn't feel funny at the time. My friends were horrified when I told them the story. Most couldn't believe it, though a few shared their own nightmare mother-in-law stories. I realized we weren't alone in dealing with this kind of thing. The experience taught us so much about marriage that we might not have learned otherwise. We learned that being a united front isn't just a nice idea. It's essential. We learned that setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a healthy adult. We learn you can love someone and still say no to behavior that doesn't serve you. And we learn your relationship with your spouse has to come first. These days, when people ask about our honeymoon, we usually give the sanitized version first. The beautiful location, amazing food, stunning views. But if they really want to know, we tell the whole story. Most people are shocked, but grateful we're honest about it. Marriage isn't always picture perfect, and that's okay. Marcus and I have talked about taking a second honeymoon at some point, a do-over where we can have the experience we originally wanted, maybe back to Bora Bora, maybe somewhere completely different. But honestly, even with all the drama, I wouldn't change what happened. It made us stronger and set the tone for how we'd handle challenges going forward. I think about that first moment on our deck, peacefully watching the royalty family before Patricia showed up. That simple, content moment became the catalyst for everything that followed. If she hadn't walked in and made that comment about strangers online, maybe we would have let her behavior continue unchecked. Maybe we would have spent the whole honeymoon trying to keep the peace instead of standing up for ourselves. That moment taught me that sometimes the smallest things can be turning points. Patricia meant that comment as a dig, as a way to make me feel small and irresponsible. But instead, it showed me exactly what we were dealing with and gave us the clarity to address it head on. The whole situation also changed how I think about family dynamics in general. I used to believe you just had to accept however your family behaved because they're family. But now I understand that healthy relationships, even with family, require respect and boundaries. You can love someone deeply and still not accept harmful or disrespectful behavior. Patricia and I have actually developed a decent relationship now. It's not perfect, and there are still moments where old patterns try to emerge, but we're in a much better place. She's learning to see me as Marcus's partner rather than a threat, and I'm learning to be patient with her process. Marcus has done a lot of work on his relationship with her too, being more direct about his needs and less willing to let guilt drive his decisions. One of the funniest moments happened about a year after the honeymoon. Patricia actually brought it up during a family dinner, laughing about how she couldn't believe she'd crashed our honeymoon. It was her way of acknowledging it without really apologizing again. And Marcus and I just looked at each other and smiled. The fact that she could joke about it felt like progress. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if we hadn't stood up to Patricia during that trip. Would she have continued pushing boundaries? Would our marriage have suffered because we couldn't present a united front? I think things probably would have gotten worse before they got better. By addressing it immediately, even though it was incredibly uncomfortable, we probably saved ourselves years of resentment. The experience made us really intentional about communication. We check in regularly about how we're feeling, whether we need to adjust boundaries, and how we can support each other better. It's not always easy, and we don't always get it right, but we're trying, and that effort matters. Looking at where we are now, compared to those stressful days in Bora Bora, I'm proud of us. We've built a strong marriage based on mutual respect, clear communication, and genuine partnership. We've learned to handle conflict in healthy ways and to prioritize our relationship without losing ourselves in the process. If I could go back and give myself advice before the honeymoon, I'm not sure what I'd say. Part of me wants to warn myself about what's coming, but another part knows that going through it was important for our growth. Maybe I'd just tell myself to trust in the relationship we were building, to know we'd get through whatever came our way together, because we did. These days when I see newlyweds, I always want to tell them to protect their early days together fiercely. Those first weeks and months of marriage are so precious for bonding as a couple. Don't let anyone, no matter how well-meaning, intrude on that time. Set boundaries early and often. Your marriage is worth fighting for, even when it's hard or uncomfortable. Marcus and I are planning our 5th anniversary now, and we're definitely doing it differently this time. We're not telling anyone where we're going until after we leave. We're turning off our phones for most of the trip. We're being intentional about creating that bubble of just us, the one we tried to have on our honeymoon. And this time, we know exactly how to protect it. The whole situation taught me that marriage isn't just about the two people in it. It's about navigating all the relationships and dynamics around you while staying true to your commitment to each other. It's about learning when to bend and when to stand firm. It's about building something together that can weather storms, even ones you never saw coming. I never imagined our honeymoon story would be one of setting boundaries and standing up to family rather than just romance and relaxation. But in a way, it's a better story. It's real and messy and complicated, just like marriage itself, and it has a happy ending, not because everything was perfect, but because we chose each other over and over again. So yeah, my mother-in-law tried to sabotage our honeymoon, and it all started with her walking in on me watching a YouTube vlog. She meant to shame me, to make me feel guilty for taking a moment for myself. But instead, that moment became the beginning of us learning to stand up for our marriage and set the boundaries we needed to thrive. And honestly, I still watch the royalty family vlogs because there's nothing wrong with enjoying content that makes you feel good, with taking moments for yourself, with having interests outside of constantly managing other people's emotions. That's something I learned on that honeymoon, and it's a lesson I'll carry with me forever.